Alright guys, today we're going to do some more finding sides. So 2.5 trigonometry. And today we're going to find missing sides. Today's the second. Alright, if you've gotten to this point, hopefully you've turned in your homework already. I'm not going to go over that because I set them all up for you yesterday. So if you didn't get last night's homework, go ahead and pull up yesterday's video, and then if you go toward the end is where I set up all the homework problems for you. So really all you have to do is plug them into a calculator and round to the third decimal point. Okay. So today we're going to do more problems like that. So the most important thing about this whole section is knowing SOHCAHTOA. Okay, and SOHCAHTOA is 3 parts. So the 3 things it tells you is that sine of A or theta or B or whatever angle you're dealing with is opposite of that angle over the hypotenuse. This part says that cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And the last part, TOA, says that tangent of A is opposite over adjacent. So today we're going to use these 3 to figure out missing sides. Okay. So I'm actually going to give you an angle. So for this one, these only work on right triangles, so it's going to be a right triangle. So you're going to have an angle here, let's call it, 35. And we're looking for this, and we have the hypotenuse is 13. All right, so I'm looking for x. So the most important part is identifying what you have. So you have this angle 35 here, and x is opposite of it. Opposite. And 13 is the hypotenuse. You can tell it's a hypotenuse because it's across from the 90-degree angle. The hypotenuse always remains a hypotenuse no matter what your reference angle is. So you have an opposite and a hypotenuse. So the only one of our 3 trig ratios that has opposite and hypotenuse is sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So sine of A. Well, in this case, we know angle A is 35, so you can plug it directly in to the formula there. And we said sine of A, or 35, is opposite, which we don't know is x, over hypotenuse, that's 13. And we want to solve for x, so we want to get x by itself. So you multiply each side by 13. So 13 times the sine of 35 is equal to x. So to figure out what that is, you just plug it into your calculator. So grab your calculator. The most important part, if you're using these, is to make sure that they're in degrees, okay? Because the other class uses the other mode. So you go to mode, so you go down, you see either radian or degree, okay? Make sure degree is highlighted by pressing enter. And then you can quit by going second, quit. All right, so our formula says 13 times the sine of 35. So 13 times the sine, that's S-I-N, of 35 degrees. And your answer, I want you to round to 3 decimal points, is 7.45, and then 6, you decide you either round up or down. There's a 4 next, so you're just going to leave it as a 6. Okay. All right, so that was example 1. Example 2 is going to be slightly more difficult. Okay. We still are going to have this, let's call it I don't know, 43 degrees. And I'm gonna know this as 11, and this will be x. Okay. So it is a right triangle, and you'll notice we have opposite of this and the hypotenuse. Okay. So we have opposite and hypotenuse. That means opposite and hypotenuse. So it's sine. Sine of 43 is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So these are a little bit trickier because the x is on the bottom. We cannot have an x on the bottom. So what we can do is we can multiply each side by x. So now we have x times the sine of 43 is equal to 11. And we're trying to get x by itself. X is being multiplied by the sine of 43. So you just divide by sine of 43 on each side. So x is equal to 11 divided by the sine of 43 degrees. Put that in your calculator. We're dividing, so make sure you're dividing. 11 divided by sine of 43. So that makes your answer 16.129. Okay. And just to make sure, the hypotenuse has to be longer than any of the other sides, and 16 is longer than 11, so that's good. All right, example number 3. We will not always be using sine. Sometimes. Also, let's switch it up. Let's do a right angle over here. Let's call this 39 degrees and 22. And we're looking for x. All right, so now if you check, this is a hypotenuse. It's always a hypotenuse because it's across from the 90-degree angle. Okay. And if you look at our reference angle, the only angle we have, this is actually adjacent, because adjacent means next to. So this would be opposite for that angle. So this is adjacent. Okay, adjacent means next to. So when choosing one of our trig ratios, cosine has adjacent and hypotenuse. So if we're going to set it up with cosine of our reference angle, which is 39, is equal to adjacent, which we don't know, so we're putting x over hypotenuse. And we solve it the same way as example 1 here. So we multiply by 22 to get x by itself. So x is equal to 22 times the cosine of 39. And we put that in our calculator. 22 times cosine of 39. And that's 17.097. Your calculator can, on like just the regular calculator on Google, will probably do this in degrees, so you should be good. But also your iPhone can do this. If you turn your calculator sideways on your iPhone, you can find sine, cosine, and tangent on there as well. All right, so example 4. Let's do something kind of crazy. Okay, we'll put the 90-degree angle here, and we're gonna say that this is 72. And this is 40, actually no, I'm gonna do this one is 31, and this is x. Okay. So this one's a little bit more difficult. Don't let it mess with you. So this is our reference angle. Okay. This, if you notice, is across from the hypotenuse, or sorry, across from the right angle. That makes it the hypotenuse. 31 is right next to 72. Okay. It's not all the way across over here, it's next to it. So that makes it adjacent. So from SOHCAHTOA, all right, from from SOHCAHTOA, we know that cosine is adjacent and hypotenuse, and those are the two we need. Okay, so it's cosine of 72 is equal to adjacent, that's right there, over hypotenuse, that's what we don't know. So we got to get x by itself. X is not allowed to be on the bottom, okay? So to do that, we multiply by x, multiply by x. So I get x times the cosine of 72 is equal to 31. Well, now x is being multiplied by cosine of 72, so I divide. So I get x equals 31 divided by the cosine of 72. In your calculator, 31 divided by cosine, make sure you're putting cosine, of 72 is 100.318. Okay, and that should make sense because it's way bigger than that side. Let's do. All right. So this one, we go across from our right angle, and that's our hypotenuse. Unfortunately, there is no hypotenuse, and we're not looking for it. So if I use this as my reference angle, I have the opposite, and I need the adjacent. So the only one that deals with opposite and adjacent is TOA, or tangent. So I have tangent of 12 is equal to opposite, which is 26, over adjacent, which is x. Okay. And it's that same process as we just did in example 4. So you multiply by x, you get x tangent of 12 equals 26, and you divide by tangent of 12. So x equals 26 divided by tangent of 12. Now, if you're very clever and you look at the very beginning, so we had tangent of 12 is equal to 26 over x. And remember, we multiplied each side by x, and then we divided each side by tangent. And what you end up with is x equals 26 over the tangent of 12. If you're really clever, you'll notice that these just end up switching. So if you know what you're doing, you're allowed to just make that switch. Okay. If not, do all the steps. All right, and last step is just plug it in. 26 divided by the tangent of 12. And that is 122.320. Oops. 122.32. All right, and I've got one more example for you, example 6. So another tangent one. Let's call this 68. And 15, and we're looking for x. All right, so this is your reference angle. The reference angle is just the angle that you have. So I have opposite of it, right opposite, and I have adjacent to it. I do not have the hypotenuse, and I don't need it, so don't worry about that. So we have opposite and adjacent, so I know I have to use tangent, because tangent is opposite over adjacent. So tangent of a reference angle, which is 68, is equal to opposite over adjacent. And since x is on the top, this one's easy. All you gotta do is multiply by 15. So I get 15 times tangent of 68 is equal to x. And from there, I just plug in 15 times tangent of 68. And that's 37.126. All right, if you have any questions, come see me some point today or tomorrow. Your homework is on this kind of thing. So your homework looks like this. It's 10 questions. Okay. 2.5, day 2. And it says find the missing side by setting up a trig ratio. Okay, trig ratio means sine, cosine, or tangent. Okay. And those are how you actually spell them. Okay. And I even put SOHCAHTOA here so you know that sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. And the nearest thousandth, that means 3 decimal points. Okay. So these first two are going to use sine. The second two, cosine. The third set of 2 is going to use tangent. And then these last 4 are mixed. Okay. So you're going to set up equations just like before. Sine, cosine, or tangent. Use your calculator. Okay. You can work with your group. The answers are up on my desk. So if it's me, you can come ask me. Or if you have a sub, you can ask the sub to check your work to make sure you're doing it correctly. But you cannot take it from my desk. Let me know if you have any questions. This is due tomorrow on the 3rd. Okay. Then tomorrow, we're going to have a fun time. What we're going to do is if we have a triangle, and I don't know the angle, but I know the 2 sides, so like let's say this is 6 and this is 12, we can use that to figure out what the angle is. So that's where we're going with this tomorrow. Have a great day. See ya.